Hello, welcome to 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. My guest today at MLTV Mainline is Huntley, nicknamed Hunney, Witthoeft, a Radnor High School senior who is on a mission to preserve a part of the past while accommodating the need for change. Soon after the Radnor School Board voted to retire the school's name and logo, Hunney started a petition to preserve the name Raiders and replace the image that had been offensive and some felt denigrating, and that is an image of an American Indian, with something that is not offensive or denigrating. Hunney, I think that's the essence of it. Welcome to 30 Minutes. What's the full story?
Well, yeah, as you said, on September 2nd, the school board made two votes. So one was to get rid of our school's native imagery, and the second vote was to get rid of our school's nickname, the Radnor Raiders. So even before this decision was made, I did agree, that the native imagery was offensive. And I saw that we needed a change. So I do applaud the school board for getting rid of that imagery. However, after researching the hundreds of schools across our nation that use the Raider name associated with different mascots, such as Vikings, pirates, birds, or other animals, I saw that the Raider name has a widespread use that is completely inoffensive towards the Native Americans. So in response to the school board's decision, I created a petition to keep our name Radnor Raiders, but associate it with a new mascot with no Native American association. And since then, that petition has gained over 1,800 signatures, and it's grown into a movement within Radnor.
How many signatures?
1,800.
1,800. Mm-hmm. And how long has the petition been up?
A couple weeks, almost a month now, I think. So yeah.
Not bad for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm very grateful.
I read the preamble to your Keep the Raider in Radnor petition, in which you make it clear that you are not arguing for the retention of the image of the American Indian, but rather the retention of the name, the Raiders, because it's been around for eons and it is so closely identified with Radnor High School or Radnor School. The other side, on the other hand, argues that because the mascot, I'm sorry, not the mascot, because the name and the image have been around for generations, they're inseparable. You can't use Raider without thinking of having the image of the Indian. And you say?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this question because as someone who shares the same goal with these people who are concerned about that inseparableness, the same goal of making sure that we don't offend the Native community, I think this is an important question that needs to be addressed. Truthfully, I'm concerned by this claim that we are incapable of separating a name, or the Radnor Raiders, from the imagery, because it greatly underestimates the ability of the Radnor community to learn and grow. In my experience as a student, I've seen how Radnor educates us through its strong sense of spirit and community. And in my opinion, what is more powerful than a name that we can watch evolve to meet the changes in society? So, and it's not like this hasn't been accomplished before. There are examples on the college level. Colgate University, for example, they're called the Colgate Raiders, and they used to have a Native American mascot, and now they have a mascot that resembles a pirate. Right now in Westchester, Henderson High School decided to remove its Native American imagery, but keep its nickname the Warriors, and let the students decide their new mascot. So I think these people, they recognize that we need to learn from our history, not erase it. And I think, yes, calling a Native American a Raider is offensive, but saying that a bird is a Raider, a Viking is a Raider, a pirate is a Raider, this eliminates the offensiveness to Native Americans. And I think that if we rebrand the Raider name at Radnor, then there's no way that this offensiveness could persist.
I understand you see this as an opportunity, as a learning experience, or it could be a learning experience for the community. On the other hand, to push it to the ridiculous, there's in this cancel society that we're living in, cancel culture, You probably would hear from the American Association of Pirates or the Audubon Society or any of another number of groups who would take issue with a bird, a pirate, or anything else you come up with. Isn't that likely?
I can't see how it's likely when we had things, for example, the NFL team, the Oakland Raiders, they're pirates. And in the wake of eliminating the Washington Redskins, Native American imagery and name, and now they're the Washington team, the Oakland Raiders, which faces the same, public, they're very much in the public eye, did not face this similar did not get told that they also have to change their name. So I'm hopeful that a change, especially with the presence that the Raider name has with different mascots like throughout the nation, would be a good one.
Well, this isn't a new issue, as you know. The school board canceled the Red Raiders mascot in 2013, from what I understand, a caricature of an American Indian with full headdress and so on. They banned at that time, however, they did not ban the name or the image of the American Indian. They chose to take a pass, even though there was strong opposition, as much then as there is today, by essentially the same people, some of the prime movers anyway. Do you think they should have 7 years ago voted to retire both the name and the image instead of waiting 7 years?
Well, I think 7 years ago, I would hope that they would at least retire, that I would hope that the imagery, like the same that I hope today, I hope that the imagery would have been retired, but not the name. But I also do wish that this decision had been made back then, because not only because the offensiveness of Native American imagery is clear, but also because in 2013, how Radnor addressed this process of removing the mascot was much more responsive to the students than it was this year. Actually, in 2013, a native speaker came to the school to present to students. And after total student involvement and discussion, only then did the school board make their decision. Whereas in contrast, this year, the decision to remove everything was made after 2 school board meetings that occurred during the summer, one a week before school when students are struggling to get everything together, and especially in the midst of a global pandemic. Like, there's a lot on people's minds, and I think it should have been made imperative that every student was involved in this decision, at least once the school year started, and we could definitely get everyone involved. So I think that if this had happened 7 years ago, that student involvement that was put into the decision would have facilitated something more fair.
But the 2 meetings that they held in August, I think it was August, they were special meetings to allow the public to come and express their positions one way or the other. Were those meetings well attended?
Well, so that's the thing. They did hear a lot of people at the meetings, but there were also many people, including myself, who did not know that the meetings were taking place. And, they definitely did. Many people were made aware of the meetings because there was a lot of meetings pertaining to whether we were going all virtual back to school, hybrid, with the nature of the pandemic. And this was something that many people were made aware of, but the Native American, there was no announcement for anything involving my school's website. The alumni weren't told that this was happening. Mm-hmm. There wasn't in my opinion, adequate social media advertisement of this happening. So a lot of people just didn't know it was taking place, or didn't think that certainly this would happen without really reaching out to the students, every student first.
But I read the accounts of the public meetings in the press, the public press, and my impression from what I read was these were well-attended meetings. Now, they may have been stacked, for all I know, by those who were in favor of retiring the name and the mascot, not the mascot, but the image, the logo. I don't know that, but my impression was that the meetings were well attended. Was that not the case?
I think the meetings were well attended, but they weren't. I honestly think that they, like, again, I'll say not enough people knew they were occurring to get like a holistic
Yes,
opinion.
the
The
balance.
main people so the main people who knew about the meetings were the people who were pushing for everything to go away.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the majority comment would be from them because they were the ones who started the meetings in the first place.
Mhm.
Whereas other people either weren't aware or truly like, again, like it didn't, I don't think students were really told like, hey, like a vote's going to be made here. Like this is going to happen like right now. So I don't think a lot of students really realized like what was at stake.
My understanding is that the selection of the Native American imagery to symbolize the nickname Raiders was intended to honor a teacher who was a Native American. Emerson Chief Metoxen was a member of the Oneida Indian tribe, and according to the reports that I read, often wore a headdress, an Indian headdress, hard word to say, headdress at school functions. And no one took offense at the time, so far as I know. That was in the 1960s, however. He joined, I think, the faculty in the 1940s, was there for well over 20 years, was beloved by the faculty. He was involved in the sports program. He was a teacher, etc. Very involved in Radnor life. And therefore, at the time, back in the 60s, I think 1964, it was decided that they would adopt the image of an American Indian in honor of him. What do you think his reaction would be 50 years later to this controversy?
Well, I can't fully speak for such an honorable figure in Radnor. But I'd like to believe that, Mr. Metoxen, having experienced firsthand the unity and camaraderie that defines Radnor, that he would be saddened by the division that this controversy has created. And that he'd also see I hope that he'd also see my solution as a compromise and as a positive solution. And, I think this is actually a great time to point out that we may not be able to hear the words of Mr. Metoxen, but his son, Tim Metoxen, actually has expressed his support towards my solution. He recently stated that he has no problem with keeping the Raider name, but removing Native imagery and all, Native American reference. So, to see someone from the Native community support my solution, like that's very powerful. And I think it speaks volumes to the kind of respectful solution and compromise that we can create at Radnor.
What's been the reaction of your fellow students to your mission, your campaign?
Well, yeah, as I mentioned to you before, the reaction from my fellow students has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm very grateful for that. Because it's not easy to stand up for something that you believe in and that you're so passionate about, and just to hear other people support me was it's really helped me push this forward. As I've said, like my overall goal with this is to create compromise, is to bring our community together rather than how the decision has like brought us apart. And I definitely wanted to show that we can grow, and to see how many of my fellow students were willing to grow and were willing to compromise in that way was super inspiring. I've had classmates who have advertised my petition, who've volunteered to deliver yard signs that I'm selling, who have even like had discussions with me about how we could promote more student advocacy. So I think, the reason why students care so much is because, yes, being a Raider can mean playing on our football team and being a football player, but it also means cheering on the sidelines or being part of a marching band or being part of our spirit week and like chanting "Go Raiders" at the pep rally. For me, being a Raider means, I'm a track athlete at Radnor, but I also participate in the school's musical. So for me, being a Raider means going to a school that allows me to be involved in the arts and sports at the same time. So I think it's the students who really define the name Raiders as being part of an amazing community. And I think that's why the reaction from students has been so positive.
I love your passion, and I love your commitment and your willingness to take on a pretty heavy load, considering that you are just not quite 18. So
Yeah.
it says something about your generation as well. Have you heard from the school board?
Well, I have. It's interesting because on the last meeting, we encouraged everyone to submit public comment at the end of the school board's meeting. And there was 41 comments at the end of the meeting, almost all of them pertaining to keeping the name and getting rid of the imagery. So I've communicated with the school board, and I think the best thing that we can do now is facilitate more student involvement. And I definitely plan on communicating with them further on this.
You've been at this now for 2 months, less than 2 months.
Yeah, about a month. Yeah.
Okay. With the benefit of 2020 hindsight, is there anything you would have done differently, even though you've only been at this for 30 days or so?
Well, I think that, as I said before, many people were so surprised by the decision made because a lot of people didn't know that these meetings were taking place. Mm-hmm. And that's just been, what I've been told personally by other people. And even if they were informed to the meetings, like certainly they didn't think that a decision would be made the week before school started, you know, before student involvement was facilitated, like total student involvement. So I think if I had done anything differently, it would be like being able to know just how much this was at stake, how much our identity was at stake. Because, as I said before, once the decision was made, it's not like I just settled for, oh, okay, like, let's just keep the name then. Like, no, I really understood like how the Native American imagery was offensive. And from the beginning, I was like, oh, but like the name Raiders, like we can use that in a different way. And that would be perfectly fine. So I think, if I had the opportunity to start my initiative during the meetings rather than after, I would. But I should point out that like I've still had such strong support, and I don't think that the timing of what I did takes away from the importance of my cause, and I think that people recognize that.
Are you really optimistic that your petition and the movement, the campaign that you've launched, will ultimately be successful in persuading the board to reverse themselves? The vote was overwhelming. There was only one, I think, who voted against, and that was with reservations, according to what I read. And there's been strong opposition, as you know, strong opposition to your position. Mm-hmm. That is, there has been strong support for eliminating both the name and the imagery. And that campaign has been waged since before 2013 by the same people who have brought it forward now. Very well-intentioned, very thoughtful, people who are as committed and have just as much passion as you do. So what makes you optimistic that little 18-year-old Hunney will be able to change the course of history?
Well, I think, even though I first of all, I'm a strong believer that I'm not just one person doing this. I have so much of the Radnor community behind me, and that's what's given me, the strength to keep going with this and to push forward. And I think, I think what's so important about my stance is that it does eliminate that offensiveness towards Native Americans. And, the school board, it was a sweeping vote to get rid of both. But I think when they made that vote, they weren't given the opportunity to hear from the whole community. And it was very much like, we need to get rid of everything or keep everything. There wasn't as much this communication on finding a middle ground. And I think being a student for 12 years at Radnor, I've been here since kindergarten. I've seen that Radnor continuously does what's in the best interest of its students. And they also listen to the voices of the community. And I think if they want to stay consistent with those goals, then they will amend their decision. Or at the very least, when we go through that process of choosing a new mascot name, have one of our options to vote on be a new mascot with the name Raiders. Leave it to the students. So yeah, I think as for the people who are against me, I say I don't want to be against them, but instead I invite them to join me, because I think at the end of the day, we share the same goal. And I think one of the greatest things I've seen through this initiative is that people on both sides, that is people who initially supported keeping both the imagery and the name, and people who originally wanted to get rid of both, have actually come in support of my solution in finding this common ground. Mm-hmm. So I think that willingness to change an opinion is very important. And I think it's something we can definitely see on both sides.
You must be heartened by the fact that there have been other school boards in other parts of the country, but some of them within this general area who have gone through a similar process. They made a decision to replace, to cancel, to retire, and then reconsidered and reversed the decision, I guess, because of support from the community for reversal of the decision. Have you researched that, and are you using those experiences to make your case?
I have not researched something where a reversal has occurred, but again, like I have seen experiences where, like I've said earlier, it's not like this hasn't happened before. Like it's going on right now at a local high school where the name is kept and we're given a new mascot. And it happens on the college level. Even like William and Mary, they've kept their tribe nickname, but they changed their mascot from a Native American to a griffin. So it's like, to me, it's just so clear that yes, it's possible. And, I do think that the leaders within Radnor have a responsibility to listen to our voices, and I think that in admitting to, saying we can revise a decision, like that's a part of growing as a person. I think it's something that we can all do.
What have you learned from this experience about yourself, about public opinion, about community life, about human nature? This has been a learning experience for you as well. A very valuable one, I would think. Mm-hmm. What have you learned? How are you different from you were 2 months ago or a month ago as a result of this experience and taking the point on a controversial issue where you must have known there would be people who agreed with you and there would be people who would violently, strongly disagree with you?
Yeah, well, definitely to your point, this has been such a learning experience and, attest to my own strength at times. And, on a personal level, I guess I've changed in the sense where, being able, I've learned the importance of speaking up for something that you believe in and knowing that, I think one of the greatest takeaways I have is no matter what happens, there's, I know I tried and I know that I put my best foot forward. And I think that's what so many people, like we have a goal here. I've learned to, the value of, just to keep going and to work hard towards something that you want. And I think on a community level, I've learned that people are also willing to, there's definitely power in numbers. Like I've seen as my petition has, gained signatures, I've heard so many voices who have come up to me and talked to me about why it's so important to them. I had one person from the Radnor community who said, my high school, they changed their name when after I left. And when I came back, with football games and stuff, it just never really felt the same. Mm-hmm. And I would hope that Radnor's not willing to take that same risk for its students, especially during a year when we're already not guaranteed so much just with the nature of what's going on in the world. Yeah. But I guess my the biggest thing I've learned is the power of community. I have a strong connection to Radnor. I've grown up here my whole life. My mom grew up here. She went to school at Radnor. So we definitely have a lot of Radnor pride. And, yeah, we just love Radnor and have been part of this community for a while. So I think this campaign has given me the opportunity to connect with students, with alumni, and with parents, and with Radnor, like a Radnor alumni of all generations. So I've learned how much this community cares and about our identity, about each other, and just about standing up for what you believe in. And to me, that's very powerful. And it's something that I'm very thankful to the community for teaching me.
Lessons well learned. I can personally identify, give testament to the power of a school name and the imagery around it. I am a graduate of St. Thomas More High School in West Philadelphia, which isn't anymore. St. Thomas More closed back in the 70s. We still have the largest alumni organization in the Philadelphia area.
Oh, wow.
It was an all-boys school. But the important thing is our mascot was a golden bear, the Golden Bears. And today you will see images of golden bears on cars, on caps. We're part of a fraternity and we identify with the golden bear. We are golden bears. And therefore, I think I understand your passion about the association of Radnor. Change the image, but just the notion of the word, what Radnor Raiders conjures up emotionally in your heart and your mind. Pretty strong stuff. And I believe, for whatever my opinion is worth, it's worth preserving if at all possible.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, accommodating those who have taken issue with the image. Have you thought about what would replace the image of the American Indian? Radnor Raiders what?
Well, I think we could take example from what other people are doing. Like, we definitely could have a griffin, or we could have, like William and Mary. That's actually been a suggestion for what our new mascot should be. We could be a pirate. We could be a bird. Like, I don't know. I honestly think that any of these options would be great. I think that's something that the students should decide. So bring that to the students. Let them come up with ideas, because it's what we care about the most.
Good. Hunney, I think it's terrific. I think it's terrific that you've taken up the cause. It's quite a responsibility, and you've taken it on regardless of the outcome. I hope it's a good outcome for you, the students, and the school. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate it.
My guest today has been Hunney Witthoeft, who is the leader of a campaign to keep the Raiders, but replace the image with something better. Until next time, this is 30 Minutes. I'm Rick Anthony. Take very good care of yourselves.